Hello, and thanks for stopping by. This is Pitfall for the Atari 2600. It was published by Activision and released in 1982, and I remember this as one of the premier titles for the 2600, and is usually one of the first games people think about when they talk about the system. It was an Activision game that kind of defined how great a game could be on the 2600. It was also one of the few games that had a bona fide sequel. I played the sequel as a kid, but I never had a copy myself. I'll track down a copy eventually. Anyway, I'm playing this from a cart on a Retron 77, and it's a relatively simple game that does a lot of really great things well. At its basic foundation, it's a platformer. You run off the screen left or right to access the next screen. Your fire button jumps, and you have to avoid a bunch of obstacles and pick up as much treasure as possible along the way. Talking about treasure, there are 4 types, and they're worth 4 different point values. In ascending order, you have a money bag, a silver bar, a gold bar, and a diamond ring. Just grab as much as you can when you find them, and try to get the highest score possible. If you're good at it, there are 32 treasures in total to grab for 112,000 points. You start out with 2,000 points, so a perfect score would be 114,000. And of course, a perfect score will end the game. Now, there's no flashy ending, mind you. The game just ends, with the Activision logo displayed on the bottom. But for the Atari 2600, this game is considered to have an ending, as boring as it is. Not a lot of games had actual endings. This is considered one of them. You have to worry about a time meter in this game. You have a total of 20 minutes on the clock to worry about. You also have 3 lives to lose before the game ends. But if you're good at avoiding obstacles and don't die, you can carry on for 20 minutes before the game naturally ends. It kind of sounds like a lot of time, but if you stop and wait too much, you won't have enough time to get all the treasures. There are some full runs on YouTube out there that show exactly how it's done, and they're worth watching if you're a fan. I encourage it. Now, about the obstacles. One obstacle is different from the others, the rolling logs. If you touch a rolling log, you stumble and lose points. Also, if you fall down a hole instead of climbing down a ladder, you also lose points, so be careful. Basically, the game is you running around and learning how to avoid obstacles and stay alive as long as you can. You can't swim, so don't step into the water or the tar pits. Also, don't step on scorpions, snakes, or campfires. You can step on the alligator heads if they have their mouths closed, but they always open them on a timer. If the mouths are closed when you enter a screen, you may want to wait for them to open so you know exactly what the time cycle is. When you have to stand on one, if the mouths are closed, you can stand anywhere. When the mouths open, you need to be standing on the very back of their heads so you won't get eaten. And those are pretty much all the obstacles. The next item you have to worry about is the maze itself. To get a perfect game, you need to not stumble and get all the treasures. The maze is the one constant. It's the same every time, so all the treasures will be in the same places. With only 20 minutes on the clock, the only way to get all the treasures is to know when to run above ground and when to climb down a ladder and go subterranean. When you climb down into the tunnels, when you go left or right, it skips multiple screens above ground. So going from one screen to the next underground, it's like going 3 or 4 screens above ground. This is a time saver. There's a specific number to this ratio. I think it's 1 to 3, but I'm not positive. I haven't researched it deep enough to memorize that, and I haven't been going for a perfect game yet, but I think it's 1 to 3. Personally, I just love running around and seeing how high of a score I can get. I played this game as a kid, and when I bought my Retron 77 a few months back, this was one of the must-haves that I had to have on the list. When I was young, I remember getting 60 to 70,000 as a score, and I actually ran out the clock a bunch of times, so I know I played this game a lot. I also seem to remember this was one of the games my father used to play from time to time, and he was also really good at it. Definitely better than I was, I think. One of the cool things about Activision as a company back then, they made really solid games in general for the system, but they also had a mail-in program where if you took a photograph of your high score, and usually they set a score limit. I don't think it was very hard to meet that limit, but if you got the right score and took a photograph of the score and mailed it in, they would mail you back an official Activision patch that you could stitch onto a coat or something, I guess. They were actually pretty interesting, and the Pitfall badge was one of the best looking patches of the bunch. Anyway, that's all I have for this one today. Thanks for stopping by to watch.